Hi, my name is Matthew Clare. I'm with NTACT, the National Technical Assistance Center on Transition. I want to tell you about a new tool we've got called the Transition Gradebook. It started out life as an Excel spreadsheet that we built for the state of Rhode Island, actually, because they had schools that wanted to keep track of transition-related activities they were delivering to their kids with disabilities. So we built an Excel sheet, and it grew and it grew and it grew over time, and it finally just kind of outgrew Excel. It got so big and so unwieldy that we had to convert it into a database. So that's what I'm going to show you today, is the database version of this thing. So it's a database that tracks the individual students in your school, tracks the transition-related activities that they've received, and it can accommodate kids from grades 6 up through age 21. The activity information it collects is based on the predictors of post-school success. The activities are categorized into five categories. There's also an early warning system component that's based on correlational research on dropout and dropout risk factors. That's done by Bob Alphonse and a number of other researchers in that area. We are funded by OSEP, so everything we develop is free of charge. So you can access this for nothing, which is great. The tool has space to record individual students' transition-related activities from grade 6 up through age 21, if they're still in school then. Their involvement in the IEP process, whether they've got an ILP, an individualized learning plan, or a graduation plan, or a student success plan, or whatever your school happens to call it. The skills trainings they've received. It has information about risk indicators, and it estimates a risk level for dropping out. And finally, it's got space for what the child is doing 1 year after they leave your school, so post-school outcomes for 1 year out. The tool can be used to support student-focused planning. For example, you can print out individual student reports and take them to the IEP meeting or intervention team meeting, or you can sit down with a parent and show them the report. You can sit down with a child and talk about the report. So individual student reports are great for that sort of thing. The tool lets you keep track of all the activities that the child's received while he or she was in school. So you can, again, see where the holes are. What does this child need? The risk calculator piece, the early warning system piece, helps you identify students who are needing extra support or intervention in a key area or areas, and also kids who are at risk of dropping out, kids who need extra interventions to stay in school and be successful. The tool can do summary reports to give you, for example, a summary of all the activities delivered during a time period or multiple time periods. The tool can also be used to inform an administrator or administrators about areas that need extra program development. So you can look at all the activities you did during the last year, for example, and see what you didn't do, what holes you have in the programs. You can look at also risk levels and look at those across time. So you can see the changes in risk composition of your kids across time. You can see whether those interventions might actually be making a difference. A bit of technical information. It's not a typical Windows program, so you don't just pop a CD into your machine and click on a setup icon. This is a web application. It needs a web server, like where your school's website lives. Everything resides at the school. The school's IT staff administer the program, and they assign access. They say who can and can't get in the program, do things in the program, use the data, and so on. They're responsible for securing the site and the data, just like all the other data that they have to keep track of for the school. If you don't have a web server or don't have space on it, or for whatever other reason can't put this tool on your server, there are a bunch of cloud-based services you can use, like internet-based services, such as Amazon Web Services or Heroku. Those are two good ones. The developers who built this program for us, Embrex out in Oregon, preferred Heroku. They recommended that because they said it was easier to configure the SSL certificates, the security measures that basically keep the site secure. Additionally, Heroku's got a nice auto update feature. So when we make changes or additions to the program, if you're on Heroku and you've configured auto updates, it just seamlessly goes onto your server and and you don't have to do anything. It's just automatically updated, as the name suggests. You can get more information about the tool or download it at our website, which is Transition TAA, but if you add a /gradebook on there, it'll get you to the specific page for the gradebook. We look at the inputs. What kind of data does this thing take? So demographics about the child, whether they've got that ILP or graduation plan, what they did for their IEP meeting, all the transition-related activities, including the required pre-ETS that the child has received during his or her tenure in school, whether they participated in skills trainings in several areas, all the risk stuff, the risk elements, and the post-school outcomes when the time comes for that. Demographics, we collected pretty basic stuff. You can see them here. Nothing fancy. IEP stuff. Participation in the IEP process. First of all, this is where we track whether they have a graduation plan or an ILP. Did they attend their IEP meeting? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, what did they do? Did they just sit there in attendance? Did they introduce it? Did they review what they did last year? Did they suggest what they want to do next year or after they leave school? Did they actually lead most of the meeting? Was it a self-directed IEP, as we would love to see? The activities we collect. As I said, they're organized into 5 categories. They're based on our predictors of post-school success. So career awareness, work experience, inclusion, student supports, and collaborative activities. On our website at that page I mentioned, there's a full list of all the data elements that the tool collects, including all the activities that it's got space to record. So take a look. Okay, so does the student have a graduation plan or other individualized learning plan? Did they get training also in self-determination or self-advocacy? It's one of the required pre-ETS. Independent living skills, social skills, or travel skills. Here are the risk elements we gather. The ABCs, for starters, the attendance or absence, the behavior, the course performance and course completion information. And then a couple of other things that feed student engagement that give us information about that. Among them, retentions, mobilities, how many schools was a child in from kindergarten through present. We know that if a child's family moves around a lot and the kid's in a lot of schools, his engagement is probably pretty low in the school. They don't know a lot of their peers. They don't have a lot of friends. They probably don't know the teachers very well, and vice versa. The kids in the school don't know them and the teachers don't know them. So if this child has a problem or needs help or has a question, they don't know who to ask. And it's really easy for them to fall through the cracks and ultimately drop out. We also look at involvement in extracurricular activities because those provide another nice hook for keeping the kid interested in school, something probably non-academic, but again, they get to meet their peers and meet some of the teachers and do stuff other than academics. It can make a difference. That can be the one thing that keeps a kid interested in staying in school. We look at post-school outcomes 1 year out. What are they doing after they leave your school? Are they in post-secondary education? Are they employed, or both? Or are they doing something else, some other thing? So we've got data in the tool now. What do you do with it? What do you see? What do you get? First, when you turn on the program, you see a dashboard that summarizes all of the data in the database. So there are a bunch of categories. I'll show it to you in a sec. But basically, you can click on any of the icons on that, and it will pop up a list of all the kids who have that characteristic or are in that category. You can get reports. So student level report, one time period for one child, multiple time periods for one child. You can get summary reports of all of the children in the database for one time period or multiple time periods. And with a multi-time periods, you can see the change in risk composition of your school. For example, how many kids were at low, medium, higher, ultra risk a year ago or this year or 3 semesters ago. And you can see a sequence and see the change in your school. It's kind of neat. We've got a number of student reports. So how many kids are in a particular category? How many kids are at low, medium, higher, ultra risk? How many kids need intervention in this, that, or the other thing? How many kids are in each disability category? we can finally do crosstab reports, so comparing two categories of data. For example, you can look at risk level crossed with post-school outcomes. So how many kids at low, medium, high, or ultra risk are engaged in post-secondary ed, employment, other, or both. Here's the dashboard, just a screenshot. The transition gradebook icon at the top left of the screen brings you back to the screen. So no matter where you are on the tool, you hit that, it jumps you back here. So if you get lost, you can get back here. There's a students icon, brings up a list of all the kids in the database, and you can do things with the students through that screen. Reports icon brings up a menu of the reports you can generate with the tool. As I said earlier, there are a bunch of icons on this screen. Number of kids broken out by grade and age, number of students receiving activities in particular areas, number of kids by risk level, how many kids are off track to graduate on time, in other words, how many kids are credit deficient for their grade level, how many kids are chronically absent, like missing 10% or more of school time, big risk factor, how many kids need support, intervention in attendance, behavior, engagement, English or math, and finally, just a breakdown of all the kids in the database by race, ethnicity. Let's look at some examples of student reports. So single student reports gives you one child, overall report, demographics, risk level, the risk factors that feed that risk level, all the activities he or she's done, and information about the student skills training he or she has received. When you run one of those, there's a checkbox you can hit that will run that report for every kid in the database. So you get a heck of a big PDF, but you can then divvy that up among IEP teams or intervention teams, or split it into individual student folders, whatever you need to do. You can do a single student risk report that doesn't give you all the activity information, just the risk stuff. It's a one-pager. You can do one student's activities over multiple periods of time. You can do one student's risk information across multiple periods of time. So you can see whether interventions are making a difference in his or her intervention needs or risk level. So here's an example. Here's the single student report. Got the student's name, name of the school, the time period for which you're reporting, so 2017-18 year, trimester 2, basic demographic stuff about the kid. Risk level, it's traffic light color, so green, sort of modified actually. It's green, yellow, orange, and red, so it's low, medium, high, and ultra risk. IEP participation, career development plan, ILP, graduation plan, and then a list of all the activities he or she's done. Here are the different activity categories, number of events, how frequently they're supposed to be happening, and then there's space for notes when you put in an activity, so that's kind of cool. The last page of the report's always the risk information. So this child is at low risk, and here are some of the risk factors that feed that risk level. Are they on track, doing extracurricular activities, and so on. And then information about the student skills trainings that the child has received thus far. One child across time. So we've got little demographics across the top. We've got the activities listed in this column, and going across the page are the different time periods. Okay, so the student summary reports summarize all of the kids in the database. It's the whole batch of kids. You can do a summary report for one time period, like one trimester, one quarter, one semester, 1 year. You can do a risk roster for one time period. You get one child per row, gives their little bit of demographics, risk level, and their intervention needs. You can do a risk summary for multiple time periods, so you can look at the risk composition and changes in that and changes in intervention needs across time. You can do a number of student reports, so you can look at the number of kids in a particular category, or you can do crosstabs that compare two data categories, just to let you explore the data further. Here's a quick example of an all-student summary report. It's 5 pages long. School name, time period you're looking at, breakdown of how many kids are in each of those grade age levels, breakdown by disability category, How many kids are in each of the risk levels here? Role in the IEP meeting, how many attended, introduced, reviewed, etc. How many kids have received skills training in these areas? Breakdown by gender, career development or ILP, attended IEP meeting. Here's page 2 of the student summary report. Up here we've got the risk information, we've got intervention needs here, and then the long list of activities delivered during that time period, and the frequency with which they happened. How many were one time, occasional, 2 to 4 times a week, daily, weekly, monthly, and so on. Got a risk roster report. So as I was saying, it's 1 child per row. Risk level by color code, name, ID, gender, race, grade, disability category or categories. If the student is not a kid with disabilities, you'd leave those blank because you can use it with all kids if you want. English language learner and intervention needs. Risk summary across multiple time periods. It's kind of cool. So you can see different time periods, how many kids were at low, medium, higher, ultra, and how many had these intervention needs across time. Kind of cool. Here's a number of students report, example of that. And this is the number of career awareness activities delivered in that time period. Here's an example of how you'd set up a crosstab report. So this is one where you can compare 2 categories of data. You basically specify the time period, school year, and this school is doing trimesters, so you specify the trimester. Primary data category, we've chosen risk level, and you do that from a drop down. So here's the secondary risk or secondary data category, and you pick it off this drop down list. Then you click on run, and it would generate a PDF. And this is an example of one. There's not a lot of data in my nonsense database, so there's not a heck of a lot on this graph, I'm afraid. But this is basically crossing risk level by support needed. So we'd have kids for whom we have no data, how many at low, medium, higher, ultra risk, and then how many kids need help with each of these 5 categories. We've got a lot of data for ultra. So for example, 19 kids need attendance help, 17 behavior, 22 need help with engagement, 8 need help with English, and 9 need help with math. But that's just an example of a crosstabs report. It's kind of a neat way of looking at data. Questions, you can always email me at gradebook@uncc.edu. If you want to get the tool, as I said, go to our website. So it's transitionta.org/gradebook, and it's there, and it's free. Let me do a quick walkthrough of some pieces of the tool. This is running on an Amazon server. I've also got an instance up on a Heroku server, but the Amazon server has a little more data in it. And again, it's nonsense data. It tells you what day it is here. When you start the program, here's the gradebook icon. It always brings you back to the screen. The little setup icon here lets you do some school setting information. There's a GPA converter. This is where you'd set your school name. The tool can handle 0 to 100 grading scale, ABC scale, or a 4-point scale. And this is where you would specify that stuff. At the end of the school year, you need to add next year. The administrator would be responsible for doing this. To do it, you basically click on the plus, and I'm not going to do it because I don't want to mess up my database, but you'd click on the plus. You would say what school year you're starting. You'd specify whether you're running on quarters, trimesters, semesters, or just entering data yearly. You would then move the students forward 1 year. So you basically promote all of the kids in the database, and it's got a mechanism for doing any retentions in case some kids don't get promoted. So you can specify which kids do not get promoted, and that's how that gets done. You can manage users through this. This is where you add people. Here's a list of the current users. You click plus, put in their name, their email address, whether you want them to be an administrator or not. It sends them an email, they set their password, and they're off and running. You can edit your profile. This is where you can change your own password if you need to. About tells you a bit about NTACT, who we are, what we do, why we do it, and a little about the gradebook. And also, if you want to log out, that's where you can log out. But I don't want to do that because I want to show you the gradebook. So here's the dashboard. Here are the various categories. So kids broken out by grade, age, etc. If you click on, let's see how many 18-year-olds there are. Here's a list of them. The triangle indicates estimated risk level. Again, the traffic light colors. Gives you some basic demographic information about the child, gender, their grade or age, disability categories, if they have one. So kids broken out, activities delivered, number of kids at the different risk levels. How many kids are at medium? 8 kids at medium, that's 5% of my database. Here they are. How many kids are off track, like credit deficient for their grade? How many kids are chronically absent, missing 10% or more of school? Here's the breakdown by number and percentage of kids who need attendance, behavior, engagement, English or math, intervention, supports to stay in school and be successful. And finally, there's just the breakdown by demographics. So let's look at the student space. Notice we've got the school year here. We're in the current year, 18-19. You can go back and edit previous year's data. And if you're going to do that, when you're about to edit previous year's worth of data, it gives you a warning so you don't accidentally do it. You'll definitely know if you're going to be editing old data. But we want to stay in the present. You can search here if you want to find a particular child. You can type in their ID number or their name. Just type me, there I am. You can edit my basic demographic information by clicking on the pencil icon by my name. There it is. This is where you specify disability category. Race, ethnicity, it's drop down. Grade, age, again, drop down based. ELL, yes, no. Date of birth, you can use a spinner or you can use a calendar or you can just type it in. Student ID number, and so on. This is also where you can delete kids. If a student drops out, actually you would probably put them as post-school in, but this is basically where you can edit a student's information. Okay, so let's go back to the whole list of kids. This is all the kids in the database, organized by last name alphabetically. You can filter here, which is kind of a cool feature. You can say, just show me the 7th grade kids who need help in whatever, let's say engagement. Save the filters. There they are. Clear those filters out. So one of the big uses of this is in multi-tiered systems of support. So if you want to rough out your intervention groups, you can say, show me the 7th grade kids who need help with math, or show me the kids who need help with attendance, or whatever you're interested in doing for an intervention. And you can just get a start at the intervention groups that way, which is pretty slick. Okay, so let's get rid of the filters. Save, and voila, there's the list of all the kids. So if you want to see information about one child, you can click on the child. Again, you can edit their demographic information, or you can look at the activities they've been participating in, or you can add activities here. So this child's received career awareness, student supports, and collaboration activities. If you wanted to add one in one of these categories, you'd click on a plus. If you just wanted to look, you'd click on the down arrow. There are the activities this kid's participated in. Let's say we want to add a work experience activity. Click the plus. You choose what type of activity it was from a drop down again. So all these are out of our predictors for post-school success. So we've picked job performance evaluation. How often is this going to happen? I'm going to say occasionally. But anyway, there's all the frequencies with which that could happen. You can either add the date by typing it in or by picking it off a calendar. You can add notes about that activity. And then you can add the event. You can add multiple events. You can add another one. So when did the next one happen? Well, let's say February 22nd. When you've added all the events you want to, you save it. And it tells you that you succeeded. When we built this tool, as an Excel sheet, we asked the schools that were using it, how big a burden is this? How big a pain is it to enter all this stuff? And they said, really, it wasn't bad. They had paras doing it. They had counselors doing it. They had teachers doing it. Whoever was delivering the activities actually just put them in. And they said it really was not terribly burdensome. At this point, probably the thing that takes the most time is entering the demographic stuff about the child. Right now, you have to do that manually. Ultimately, if there's enough interest and we have enough users and people wanting the feature, I envision that we probably will add a way of importing a bunch of information from a block of kids. So putting in all their demographic stuff, all their maybe feeding in their risk factors, maybe connecting it to a student information system. That would be probably the easiest way of doing that. And we're considering that in the future. But right now it's a young program, so you've got to work with us a little bit. Okay, so those are activities. This is where you'd put in the activities, where you could look at them as well. Here's the risk factor information. 2018-19, we're in the third trimester, we're going to say. Risk factors, you can edit them with that pencil. So grade, the ABC information, retentions. Here's where student skills appear. So the child's gotten self-determination and independent living skills. If you want to add some of those, there you go. Career development and IEP stuff. So this is where you say whether they attended their IEP meeting. Well, the student hasn't, but let's change it and say that he has attended. Why, yes. What did they do? Attend, introduce, review, suggest, or lead it. Do they have a career development or a graduation plan or an ILP, whatever your state or your school or your district calls it? Sure. Saved it. There we go. So that's how you put activities in, how you work with student data. Reports. Basically, we have individual reports and summary reports. Here's where you get that one student, one time period report. Basically specify what period of time. You pick the child off a list. If you wanted to see all the kids in the database report, there's where you'd click that option, but let's just do one child. It generates a PDF. All the reports from this tool are PDFs. This one's 2 pages long. It's nonsense data, so we don't have a lot of activities recorded in here. But that's what the individual kid report looks like. Here's where you do the risk report. The standard thing is you specify the time period. Well, let's do a longitudinal one. So starting period, 17-18, let's say trimester 1, 18-19, trimester 3. You pick the child. And the tool is smart. It's the list of kids it shows you it only shows you the kids basically who are in school for whom we have data for the whole time period. So you're in the report. Here we go. Risk factors across time. and areas of need across time. Post-school report. Again, you pick the time period, you pick the child, run the report, and it gives you information about the demographics of the child, the last risk level while the kid was in school, how they exited school, this one was other, what they're doing now, this one was other. Summary reports, here's the summary. As usual, you pick when you want that summary for, and you run it. It gives you a 5-page report summarizing all the information about the kids and all the activities that you've delivered during that time period. Risk roster. One child per row, demographic stuff, intervention needs. Number of students, this is where you can do those reports on one category. Let's see how many kids are in each disability category, for example. So breaks it down for that time period. So that's basically the tool. It's called the Transition Gradebook. It's on our website, or access to it and information about it are there. Feel free to go there and download it. If you have questions, please get in touch. We would be happy to help you use the tool to its fullest extent and enjoy it while you're doing it. So thank you.